nice to have you folks back here at Murphy's Welcome to My World. This is episode 17. This is going to be a fun little episode. This particular volume, I'm going to show you how I use my weathering powders to color laser cut wood kits. Now I like using my weathering powders. Well, they're dry, so you can go right on to construction. They also never give you the opportunity to warp or deform your wood parts like paints and stains do sometimes. So come along with me, let me show you how I do it. Well, let's get started in coloring with these dry weathering powders. You got to start off by thinking about what you're going to use for brushes, and you'll see I have a whole pile of different brushes here. The different brushes are used for different things. To start off with, you notice that some of them have color in them already. They've been used for the different colors. And you don't have to worry about that because all you have to do to get rid of that excess color in them is a little bit of warm soap and water, and it comes right out. Now you'll notice this one. This is what you'd call your generic everyday use. And it's pretty stiff, pretty long. You've got different lengths also. You see with the three of them here, they're all different lengths for different purposes. As you want to get a stronger color, you want to use a shorter, stiffer brush, because then you can really get that color into the texture. For the really fine detail stuff, the really easily broken bits and pieces, you want to have a really soft brush. And sometimes you'll notice that this one is a really soft one. This one is what I use for most of the smaller bits that are fairly hardy. Now a little bit about the powder itself. The first set that I bought, this is the second set I bought, the first set they were very careful to try to tell you that these are not just ground up chalk. Something to do with electrolytic attraction. So they actually become much stronger bond to the material that you're putting them on. Oh, I almost forgot about these here. These brushes are to brush off the excess powder on your working material. This is for your standard brushing off, not too stiff. This one's for the very fine parts, the little bitty parts, because you want to be really careful not to break them as you're trying to color. Well, let's take a minute and talk about different kinds of materials. Not everything takes this weathering powder well. Let me show you here on this bit of plastic. Now, as you see, the plastic doesn't take the color very well. Now with different papers, with this cardboard here, you see it takes the color pretty good. And those new high density cardboards that are coming in a lot of the laser cut kits now, that high density stuff takes the color quite well. You want to be a little careful with these different cardboards. This has a shiny coat to it. Sometimes the shiny coats will take a nice color. Sometimes it won't. You see that this one's doing pretty good. This is taking the color quite nicely. One thing that I'd like to add at this time is, depending upon what color your substrate is, lighter color, darker color, same thing holds true with the wood, the lighter color and the darker color. If you have a darker color substrate, you want to use a darker color of the dry weathering powders. If you have a lighter color substrate, you want to use one of the lighter colors. One thing that I've learned from experience is you cannot use a really light color on a dark background. It just doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work very well. So, lighter substrate, lighter weathering powders, darker substrate, the darker weathering powders. Now, talking about plastic, if you really want to use your plastic model and use these weathering powders, the best way to make the powders work is by pre-painting the plastic, some neutral color, gray, something like that. The problem with the plastic in metal also is it's so smooth, it doesn't stick. It'll come right off again. And as you see, it barely leaves any color there at all. So that's a little bit about other products, other substrates. Let's try putting a little color on some of these wood bits. Looking at what I have set up here, different woods take these weathering powders differently. And about the only way you can really figure out how they will take the weathering powder is to take a bit of scrap like I have here and try it. This bit is balsa wood. This one I believe is basswood. It's pretty hard. It's pretty stiff stuff. This is really soft stuff. So let's try a little bit of the blue on here. See how this comes out. And the softer the material, like the balsa, the more it's going to take the color on. And notice that I'm taking my time here, making sure that it's nice and even. It's really hard to come back later and add color. Okay, so see that's taking the color pretty good. Let's go over here to this harder wood, see how it takes it. Sometimes they take it quite well, sometimes they don't take it so well. This bit of wood looks like it's coming out pretty good. Yeah, this one's coming out quite nice. It's taking the color quite nicely. Now what I always do is I take and I carefully brush it off for two reasons. One, it'll get all over the place if you don't. And two, I'm trying to recollect all of the excess so I can use it again. Now you see it's making a nice color here. What I also do is I have a handy paper towel on hand, and then I just do a little bit of clean off on the end, and you'll see that it is taking off some of the color. The reason I do this last part, if you don't, this color, this powder is going to get everywhere. Ooh, that's the voice of experience again. So you just take and you clean it up a little bit. Now you see that those took the color quite well. And here you can see that I've made up some test strips of different colors. And you'll see that the colors don't look the same on the different substrates. So you want to play with it to see what your material is going to do with a particular color. We got the blue, which is what they call in this particular manufacturer faded blue. See, it looks real different on the different materials. And you got the sand. Some materials they don't show up hardly at all. Other materials they show up pretty good. Kind of depends on what you want. You got the grimy gray, which are these, and they came out actually quite nice. I use this a lot for rough buildings. You have the Patenta green, and some, like this one, comes out really nice. And then you got the rusty red, which comes out fairly good on most all the different substrates. Now I do need to warn you that this powder can and will get everywhere if you're not real careful. What I do is I take and I wash my hands between each color, and I use a separate piece of paper for each color so I don't contaminate the next batch. As long as you're real careful with this stuff, you're not going to get it everywhere. I don't think you can see it here, but I've already got a bunch of spots on my backdrop. Even though I was being really careful, I already got some spots on the backdrop. Well, that's a primer on how to use these dry weathering powders. Some of the advantages of the dry weathering powders is, well, of course, they're dry, so they can go right on to construction, go to the next one. They don't ever lend an opportunity for warping or distortion of the backing, any of the material, and it just comes out really nice. This is a little sign I made for the recent NMRA convention in Portland, Oregon, and the colors came out really nice in this one. I think you'll find that if you take a little time and play with these dry weathering powders, you'll really like them. They don't work on everything, and they're not for everyone, but they certainly are my first choice, in particular for wood or paper. Now let me show you some of the other buildings that I've colored with these dry weathering powders. and let's see what you think. This was episode 17, a fun little episode dealing with how to color your laser cut wood kits with dry weathering powders. I really like using them. They're fast, easy, and reliable. I would suggest that you practice a little bit with these dry weathering powders before you use it on a real kit. Other than that, you're going to have fun with it. It's easy. Thanks for joining us. Come back again soon. Bye now. Have fun with the trains.